Masterclass. That's us record, but this is being recorded, so we will get this sent out. We'll get it sent out to you after, so you can relive it once more. um, we'll get the ball rolling. I think there's quite a lot of people in now. As I said, welcome to the biodiversity webinar. What we're going to do in this webinar is a lot of people struggle with this when doing the assessment. So what we're going to do today is just have a basic look at what is biodiversity, how relevant is it to your business kind of thing, and your daily actions. I know a lot of people, especially in hospitality, think, what's this got to do with me? But hopefully by the end of the webinar, we'll see it is quite important to kind of all aspects of business and life as well. And finally, how can I help improve biodiversity through my business? Again, some people don't see this as relevant to their business, but hopefully all will be revealed. And finally, hopefully, if we've got time at the end, we'll have a few question and answer sessions. So if you've got any questions, that just fire them in, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. So without much to do, we'll get started. What is biodiversity? As I say, biodiversity is defined as the variety and variability of life on Earth. It is a measure of the variation at genetic, species, and ecosystem level. Variation within these three categories is the basis of evolution, and more diverse and abundant the gene pool, the fitter the species. The more variation within the species, the easier it can adapt and utilise habitats. In this slide, we see an example of variation emanating from one species, the Hawaiian honeycreeper. It's a good example of what Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, the Galapagos and Borneo, respectively. Islands are a microcosm of the Earth. You have a founder species that evolves through genetic mutation to fit available habitats. Studies have demonstrated a tight link between shapes and sizes of beaks and the feeding habits in both groups, which suggests that adaptation by natural selection to the different feeding resources available on the islands may have been one of the main processes driving their evolution. Another example of variation driving natural selection is the studies done in the 1950s in Britain on peppered moths in the industrial Midlands of England. This demonstrated that adaptation to a changing habitat can happen quite quickly. Connectivity in nature as well. Nature is a web in which everything is connected. Any loss or reduction of habitat or species affects this connectivity and diminishes the gene pool. The natural world, and in turn, can influence human existence and biodiversity. In this slide, we can see the much used example of connectivity in nature. In Yellowstone National Park in the 1920s, the grey wolf was exterminated by ranchers. However, taking out the top predator in the system triggered what they call a trophic cascade. This meant that elk populations exploded, which led to overgrazing, loss of young trees. This led in turn to a crash in beaver populations, which in turn led to straightening and speeding up of river courses. Loss of riverside trees through overgrazing caused a decline in salmon numbers, small birds, amphibians, due to a lack of shade, and insect populations. A lack of carrion left over from wolf kills led to a decline in bear, eagle, and raven populations. It also led to an explosion in coyote numbers, which in turn led to a decline in pronghorn antelope. So by removing just one species, it upset the natural balance, changed the habitat, and led to a decline of many other species. The reintroduction of the grey wolf back into Yellowstone in the 1990s has led to a reversal of all the negative effects and has restored balance back to the national park. Now, these types of projects are happening all over the world to restore trophic levels. Bison in Europe, buffalo in North America, sea eagles and beavers in the UK, and most recently India is in the process of reintroducing cheetahs, not seen there for hundreds of years. These may seem a long way from your business, but it helps to demonstrate that nature is connected on many levels and forms systems that can be easily interrupted and degraded by the loss of one species. To paraphrase the English poet John Donne, no species is an island apart from the main, or as the Scottish conservationist John Muir put it more simply, when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything in the universe. But what does biodiversity do for me? A study in the UK found that exposure to the natural environment and nature improved both self-esteem and mood, with the proximity to water generating the greatest effect. Best overall effect was detected among the young, while the people with mental health issues exhibited some of the biggest improvement in self-esteem. There is also research material that suggests that connection between the psychological well-being of people and species richness. For example, data from the US indicates a significant positive association between life expectancy and exposure to nature, whilst an urban Australian study found that both personal well-being and neighbourhood satisfaction rose in places with greater diversity of wildlife species. But what are the triggers that stimulate these feelings of well-being? Colours, smells, sounds, memories and associations all help to lift spirits, moods and generally feeling better. Research at Alderhay Hospital in Liverpool used recordings of birdsong, weather and rain, and these showed tangible results for calming young patients receiving stressful treatments. And at this time of year, the sounds of birdsong in the morning helps us to realise that winter is ending and summer is just round the corner. Although the seagulls this morning about 5 o'clock were quite bad at my place. Smells also trigger association with nature and well-being. This could be the smell of wet grass, the coconutty smell that emanates from gorse bushes in the spring, the smell of pine trees, which is shown to have an anti-inflammatory effects, all have beneficial effects on our mental health and physical well-being. Whatever the triggers or combination of triggers are, science has shown us that spending time close to nature is very good for us. Most people now live in urban environments, so any exposure to nature and biodiversity that you can provide through your business is not only good for them, but good for business. There is a biophilic green wall inside or outside your premises, tubs of colourful scented pollen-rich flowers in your beer garden or at your business entrance. It may be creating a mini habitats, nesting niches or feeding stations to bring wildlife closer to your place of business. All these help customers to interact and reap the benefits of biodiversity. And biodiversity may be more important to your business than you realise. The UN Environmental Programme Finance Initiative found that 13 of the 18 sectors that comprise the Financial Times Share Index 100, representing $1.6 trillion in market capitalization, are associated with the production processes with high or very high material dependence on nature. And according to the World Economic Forum, more than half of the global domestic product depends on nature. It could be easily assumed that biodiversity risks are confined to heavy impacted sectors such as mining, forestry, or agriculture. However, many companies rely on natural capital, and this can impact them in some way. Excuse me. Therefore, businesses should consider including biodiversity and natural capital into their mainstream risk register. This is done by having procurement policies that ensure that you are not using products or produce that damage biodiversity. Now, these are big numbers, impressive numbers, but what about my business? As you can see from the slide, nature and biodiversity contributes vast amounts of income for tourists and brings much needed business and therefore income to areas that might struggle to attract visitors. In a survey about attitudes to travelling in the UK in 2022, 32% of people asked like to be in nature when travelling. 17% of all UK tourism trips involve nature or wildlife watching in some form or another. Nature contributed to an estimated 12 billion to the tourism and outdoor leisure within the UK in 2019. And a survey done in March 2022 found that 4 in 10 adults reported that nature, wildlife, and visiting green places had become more important to their well-being since the pandemic. But what can I do in my business to relieve pressure on biodiversity? Loss of biodiversity is a global problem, but your actions can still make a difference, both in your area and through careful research procurement. It can also help in a wider context. By careful examination of what you have within your business and what you use to run your business will demonstrate the importance of protecting biodiversity and natural capital. Deciding to review your procurement and looking at what can be done at and around your premises to bolster biodiversity are the first steps. These are the two approaches to reducing the impact your business has on biodiversity. As mentioned, biodiversity and direct action. First, we'll go through procurement. I know it's quite not a boring subject, but we'll go through it anyway. When you're looking at procurement, reassess your current procurement methods. If you do not have any provision for the protection of biodiversity, then include it. If you do not have a formal procurement policy, then establish one. Make sure that when reassessing or establishing the procurement policy, that you take into consideration the origin of products and produce and the method used to grow, process, and transport them. What is green procurement? Now, this involves evaluating your supply chain and looking at where the products are from, what they are made of, and what happens to them once they have been used. Protecting biodiversity is essential for the long-term sustainability of our planet. So what can you do? As mentioned, conduct a biodiversity assessment. Look at the impact that your supply chain has on ecosystems. Consider factors such as habitat destruction, species displacement, or pollution. By understanding the potential risks, you can develop strategies to minimize negative impacts and protect biodiversity. Preserve natural habitats. Identify ways to minimize disruption to habitats during sourcing, production, and transport. This may involve working closely with suppliers to ensure responsible practices that avoid encroaching upon biodiversity hotspots. By preserving natural habitats, we protect the delicate balance of the ecosystems. Support sustainable agriculture. Prioritize suppliers who practice sustainable agricultural methods. Encourage biodiversity-friendly farming techniques that avoid the use of harmful pesticides and promote soil health. Sustainable agriculture not only protects biodiversity, but also ensures long-term food security and the well-being of local communities. Responsible land use. Promote responsible land use practices such as regenerative farming. Avoid deforestation by sourcing from suppliers who can demonstrate commitment to protecting natural areas. Consider supporting regenerative agriculture methods that restore soil health and promote biodiversity. Reduce pollution and waste. Implement measures to minimize pollution and waste generation. Evaluate processes to prevent harmful substances from reaching ecosystems. By reducing pollution and waste, we safeguard the health of ecosystems and prevent the degradation of natural habitats. Engage local communities. Collaborate with local communities, Indigenous groups, and conservation organisations. Seek their insights and involve them in decision-making processes. By understanding their concerns and working together, you can develop solutions that prioritise biodiversity conservation while respecting the needs of local communities. Support restoration initiatives. Contribute to ecosystem restoration projects as part of your commitment to biodiversity conservation. Support initiatives such as reforestation or wetland rehabilitation to revitalise impacted areas and restore critical habitats. By actively participating in restoration efforts, You can help conserve biodiversity and create positive change. In this slide, the procurements and produce that you use within your business can have a massive impact on biodiversity, both at home and abroad. Many ingredients and products such as palm oil, sugar, plastics, and digital electronics are significant contributors to both habitat loss and pollution. In the slide here, we can see the UK's land footprint overseas in hectares for 7 commodities superimposed on a UK map for comparison. The amount of palm oil grown worldwide for eventual consumption in the UK is the same landmass as Northern Ireland. All of Wales would be soya. The southeast England from the Wash to the Isle of Wight would be in beef or leather production. Finally, the most of Northern England to the Great Glen in the north of Scotland, nearly 8 million hectares, is taken up by timber production destined for the UK. Now, where possible, ensure any product or produce you purchase are sustainably, responsibly, and ethically produced. A quick way to do this is to look for certification from organisations such as the Marine Stewardship Council, Forestry Stewardship Council, Rainforest Alliance, RSPC Assured, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, and the Roundtable for Responsible Soya, and Proterra. They all not only run accreditation certificates, but also provide a wealth of information on the various projects on their website. There's apps for everything. There are also apps such as Palm Oil Scan, Good Fish Guide, and Seasons, which can help you make decisions on how and what and where to buy sustainable products for your business. It is worthwhile remembering that not all sustainable producers will be members of a certification scheme, and that many small local businesses offer a fantastic range of products that are ethical, sustainable, and responsibly produced. I mean, example for shopping at Ocado has a palm oil free shop listing 1,648 different products. Now we come to the kind of second part of the what you can do, and this is direct action. The four main points on taking direct action within your business to protect, enhance, and promote biodiversity are: provide, enhance, or diversifying existing habitats in and around your premises; encourage and sustain flora and fauna in and around your premises; get involved with local, national projects and campaigns that benefit nature and enhance biodiversity; and try to educate your customers and visitors to the value and benefits of being more ecologically aware. The things to consider helping biodiversity on your premises: plant native where possible; consider light and noise pollution; support local conservation efforts; support any existing species that you do have; provide natural habitats and protect existing ones; maintain gardens and grounds with a focus on the biodiversity; and try to limit the use of chemicals, whether fertilizers, pesticides, or herbicides. The ways to achieve this: by providing shelter, food, and nesting places, you will not only encourage wildlife, but this can easily be done by using the following: nesting boxes for birds and mammals, feeding and watering stations for wildlife, planting for wildlife, and encouraging customers to get involved and supply information about the nature that is in and around your business. I mentioned before nest boxes. There are a multitude of nest boxes available. You see here open-fronted boxes for robins and wagtails, blue and great tip boxes, house martin swallow cups, house martin terraces, and swift boxes. Built-in nest boxes, which I will speak of more in another slide. And there's a swift collar. That thing in the middle, the little MP3 player, is a swift collar. Swifts tend to be slow to take up on artificial nest sites, but the collar draws them in then to start using them. And swifts, just for one, are in a serious decline in the UK, and there are many, many groups around the country involved in schemes to try and reverse that downward trend in their numbers. And I can remember when I was a child being out in the back garden in the evening, and the sky was filled with noise of screaming swifts. and this was in the middle of the city, but nowadays very few are to be heard. Now, this is mostly down to lack of nesting places. If you're considering a new build or an extension, there are many construction materials available that are specifically made for roosting bats and nesting birds. These are precast or pre-made and put in place during construction, both in walls and in pitched roofs. You could also feasibly retrofit them in existing buildings, but it's a bit trickier. Now, these are becoming more important with the new Biodiversity Net Gain Legislation, or BNG, which came into force in the UK on the 12th of February this year. But the builder or developer must make sure that any development will result in a more or better quality natural habitat than there was before the development. They must deliver a BNG of at least 10%. So these are a good way to help achieve this. Birds and bats have lost a lot of nesting and roosting places over the years with the use of plastic fascias and soffits on buildings and the conversion of many rural outbuildings to human dwellings. This coupled with the demolition of older buildings for new development in urban areas. So these are innovative products that are a good way of replacing these missing niches. And it's not only small birds that benefit from artificial nesting niches. If you have the space, larger birds such as owls and kestrels can also benefit. You see on the slide a kestrel box, also tawny, barn and little owl boxes. And if you really have some space, there's an osprey platform. I remember sitting in a hotel overlooking Loch Tummel in Perthshire, watching an osprey bringing food in for their offspring in a nest built on a platform and a pylon across the other side of the loch. And in conversation with the owner of the hotel, he said that his business in the bar had quadrupled because of people coming in to see the nesting birds and having a drink and meal when they were there. In urban settings, not only can erecting owl and kestrel boxes help bolster their numbers, but can also help towards reducing any rodent problems that is often found in towns and cities. There is a growing number of raptors making their homes in urban settings, such as the often seen peregrine falcons nesting in cathedrals and church spires. However, in the last couple of weeks in the UK news, there have been numerous accounts of owls and both tawny and barn getting stuck in people's chimneys and having to be rescued. And this is taking place all over the country: North Arlington, Redcar, Barnard Castle, and Corpsley in Norfolk, just to name a few. Now, this is probably due to them seeking nesting sites as more and more urban trees are tidied up and removed due to safety concerns. It's cutting down the owls' natural nesting holes. So by providing boxes for them to nest in, you are creating their lost nesting niches. Because it's not only feathered flyers that benefit from nest boxes, as already mentioned, but bats also use boxes quite readily. In this slide, we can see various types: as standard box type, a fancy designer box, roost or hibernaculum boxes. Recent study in North Bavaria in Germany found that there was more occupancy success in bat boxes when a range of different type boxes were deployed and when placed in clusters of 3 to 4, as seen in the first picture on the slide. I've included plans on the slide if you want to have a go at making them yourself. Again, it's not only plant mammals, but that benefit from helping hand to find nesting and bedding down places. Here we have in the top row of the slide some example of dormouse boxes. One of our green tourism members who provides a 5-star luxury treehouse for people, accommodation in the Wye Valley, is fortunate to have both a wildflower meadow and an area of hazel coppice on the property and has put up a lot of dormouse boxes with great success. Of course, dormouse are not found all over the UK, but one larger mammal who 30 years ago was only found in a few places in the northwest of Scotland is now making an appearance all over the country. Speaking, of course, of the pine martens, the box at the bottom of the slide is one used by them. Pine martens are being encouraged via erecting boxes like this in the northeast of Scotland and in Ulster to help protect the native red squirrels from the introduced grey squirrels. Pine martens showing a preference for the larger, slower moving, more ground moving greys for an easier, less energy expending meal. As mentioned, it's not only nesting places that you can use to help both the diversity, But also by providing a consistent food source, you can help bolster numbers through survival rate. Again, there are a plethora of types of bird feeders available. There are even books on which are the best ones. Here we have excuse me, here we have a selection of store-bought ones, some homemade ones, and a big mega feeder if you're prone to forget to fill them up. One of the best bird seeds, foods that you can give birds that are high in protein and unsaturated fat are black sunflower seeds, these having a higher oil content than the striped ones. They can be obtained in complete sunflower hearts from a lot of Eastern European grocery stores have these nowadays, and in loose bags from like say B&M or whatever the cheapest ones are in B&M. But with the current avian flu pandemic, it's good practice to disinfect bird feeders and tables periodically. Although the disease is not that evident in smaller birds that you would find visiting your feeders, and so far has mostly affected larger waterfowl and seabirds, it's best to be cautious and have a scheduled disinfection regime in place. Here we have some more examples showing what can be used to provide food for birds that may visit your premises, such as fat balls, apples, seeds, and dried insects. Feeder on the right has a tree underneath it to catch any spillage where vermin might be a problem. But it's not only food that can be put in these, also at this time of year, spring nesting material. The one on the bottom left is a store-bought one with alpaca wool in it. The top two are homemade upcycled ones. In the spring, you can fill them with moss, straw, sheep's wool, and dog hair, all great for lining nests. There are also squirrel-proof ones available if they are causing a bit of a nuisance of themselves. Possibly the next most important thing you can do, especially in the winter, for keeping the birds in your gardens or grounds in good condition, is a supply of water. This especially when feeding them dry food and when other water sources are frozen. Bath, a shallow dish, an old frying pan filled with water and raised off the ground with a small plastic ball in it, floating on it will stop it freezing and is sufficient for a supply of much needed water. Once again, you're not limited to bird feeders. There are many feeders that you can use to attract mammals. The middle photograph here of the little red squirrel is from a green tourism member's garden in Lockery. Unfortunately, the top right and left hand photographs, your feeders will sometimes get trashed by other wildlife, but persevere with them. Not only will it bring interesting wildlife closer to your guests and visitors, but it will also help bolster wildlife populations in your area. Now on to planting for biodiversity. Planting for biodiversity can take many routes, from large-scale tree planting and hedge planting to small tubs, planters, and hanging baskets, if space is limited. This can also involve the planting of shelter belts, berry-bearing shrubs, and pollinating flowers. With these actions, you are helping to provide shelter and sources of food. Without pollinating flowers, insects die off. Without insects to pollinate, human food supplies are threatened. Research has shown that there has been a 75% decline in European insect biomass. Now, this is a concern as about 2/3 of the world's crop plant species rely on animal pollination, and bees, butterflies, beetles, and all the other species that help plants to go through their life cycles and ensure that we continue to eat. It's estimated that bees and other insects are worth 700 million to the UK economy. I've heard that insects described as ecological glue, which is a pretty good description. Where insects have crashed in the recent past, such as the Central Valley in California and some areas of China, has taken a vast amount of effort and money to artificially pollinate crops, which before the insects were doing for free. In China, farm workers have to climb fruit trees in the spring to use feather dusters on sticks to hand pollinate between blossoms in fruit trees. 20 farmers are needed to replace the work of one bumblebee nest. So by planting where you can, you are helping to hold systems together. There are many projects that you can get involved in or promote, such as Beeline project to promote the corridors of pollinating plants, the length and breadth of the South Downs in the southeast of England. And the UK Pollinator Monitoring Scheme records insect pollinator populations across the country. There's also the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan, which I'm sure some of you are quite familiar with. On the slide, we can see some examples of planting green walls, tree planting, herb gardens, an urban bicycle shelter with a green roof and a built-in bug hotel and nesting boxes. This itself covers a lot of bases in the criteria and also stops your bike from disappearing. Planting trees, if you have the space in your gardens or grounds, is a great way to boost biodiversity. London Urban Forest has 8,421 trees. That's nearly one tree per inhabitant. The ecosystems provided by this urban forest were carbon capture, rainwater interception, the removal of air pollution, building energy savings, and building energy carbon avoided. And these were valued at 133 million per year. Edinburgh follows up quite a bit behind with having 700,000 trees with an ecosystem service value to the city of just under 2 million per year. When considering planting trees, one of the best methods is using the Miyawaki method, named after a Japanese plant biologist. It's regarded as one of the most effective tree planting methods for creating forest cover quickly on degraded land that has been used for other purposes, such as agriculture or construction. It is effective because it is based on natural reforestation principles, i.e. using trees native to the area and replicating natural forest regeneration process. It has some significant benefits over traditional forestry methods when used in smaller afforestation projects and is particularly effective in the urban environment. The trees planted by this method grow much faster, jump-starting the forest creation process and capture more carbon. The essential principles of the Miyawaki method is using species of trees that would occur naturally in the area and that work together to create a diverse, multi-layered forest community. This creates a resilient, thriving forest ecosystem with species that complement each other, restoring native forests by native trees. Higher biodiversity has been recorded in the Miyawaki forest than in neighbourhood woodland, so it's an ideal method for creating a diverse ecosystem quickly. The selection of species to plant in a given area was originally linked to the theory of potential natural vegetation, or PNV. In other words, the vegetation that would occur in a specific area without further human interference. The trees in the Miyawaki forest grow up 10 times faster, at around 1 metre per year, reaching a stable multi-layered forest community in 20 to 30 years instead of hundreds of years of normal planting. The growing trees absorb more carbon in a Miyawaki forest than in a plantation or in a standard afforestation project because they grow quickly and they are 30 times as many. Miyawaki forests have also been found to have a far higher biodiversity than neighbouring woodland, on average 18 times higher. So if you have the space, do not just plant one tree, plant a whole bunch of trees, preferably from local stock. On the BBC News last week, there was an example of residents in Peterborough in England getting together with the local council and planting a tennis court-sized forest of 600 fast-growing native trees, the city's first tree forest. Again, it's not only rural areas that can play a part in providing plants for pollinators. Urban areas where space is sometimes limited can also achieve this with the use of baskets, planters, boxes, herb gardens. These can be situated at the entrance of your premises, on balconies, patios, decking, courtyards, and rooftops. This is not only making your premises look and smell pleasant, but it's also a great benefit to insects. Look to plant flowers that provide a source of pollen from spring through to autumn, such as lavender, sedums, crocus, rosemary, chives, and phacelia. Now, this phacelia is heralded as being the most attractive plant for bees on the planet. But don't only plant plants that flower in the daytime, but plant some night-scented stock, honeysuckle, and even primroses. These will not only fill your patio or beer garden with lovely scent in the evening, also provide nectar for many night-flying moths and other insects. Biodiversity in urban areas. The opportunity, as previously mentioned, to provide and conserve flora in urban areas is a great way to bolster biodiversity. We can see in the slides different ways to do this. Somebody has created a small wildflower meadow in a planter, giving a source of nectar and a great splash of colour in a very urban setting. Also in the centre photograph, we can see the use of green walls to break up and soften bare concrete and brick. This is known as biophilic design and is increasingly used in urban architecture and is not only good for biodiversity, but provides health and economic benefits and a feeling of connectivity to the natural world to human occupants as well. And though considered to be a fairly new concept, it can be traced back to the 6th century BC and the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. In the photograph above, Buddleia, although not native, is a huge draw for pollinating insects. Planting just one or two of these in pots is a quick fix for attracting pollinators to any patio, courtyard, or planter. The photograph of the brick wall, I put this in to demonstrate how wildlife can grow in the most urban areas. The maidenhair spleenwort seen in the picture is being a calcicol or alkaline living plant is seen here taking advantage of the lime in the mortar between the brickwork. Another example of this can be seen in the bottom right hand of the slide. I took this photograph walking home from the office. It's just a crack in the tarmac on a canal footpath, but you can see how plants and grasses are trying to establish a foothold in the narrow space. And this helps to demonstrate that nature will try to establish itself everywhere given a chance. All this talk of pollinating insects leads us to honeybees. There's a growing movement in both rural and urban hospitality and other businesses of keeping honeybees in beehives. In the slide, we can see examples from London, Belfast, Paris, and San Francisco. Of the 250 species of bees found in the UK, they are all under threat from growing pressures from climate change, pesticide use, and loss of traditional wildflower areas, the varroa mite, and invasive new species such as the Asian hornet. Although the honeybees are not going to go extinct, they are under stress, so any help you can give them is fantastic. There are beekeeping clubs in every town and city in the UK, and a quick internet search can put you in touch with them. They're always looking for sites to put their beehives, and you won't get a more locally produced, healthy product than honey made on your roof or in your grounds. I saw these eco hives, tree hives, on a campsite just outside Keswick in the Lake District, and I thought they were a really good idea. As mentioned before, the insect population across the world is on the decline, and due to many factors like use of pesticides, climate change, and deforestation. Now, this decline in insect numbers not only has implications for, as said before, for human food supply, but has a knock-on effect on bird numbers, fish stocks, and insectivorous mammals as well. So anything you can do to bolster populations in your area is all good. So how do you do this? Bug boxes. Well, you'll probably be familiar with these. These are a simply quick fix to provide habitat for many species of insect. If you have the space, log piles are in fact a fantastic way to mimic woodland habitat and provide shelter and food for a plethora of different insects. These boxes come in many designs and sizes. As you can see on the slide, there are even books about building them. Bug boxes and bug hotels can be bought cheaply and again come in many guises. They are also fairly easy to make from recycled materials and things like pine cones, canes, and dried stems of plants. There are some great examples, such as the one in the slide from one of our members at the Roman Army Museum at Hadrian's Wall on the border. It's a corker. You can also scale up or scale down your provision of habitat for insects, depending on what space you have. On the slide, we can see some examples of dead hedges, which are basically piles of brash and cuttings laid out or pegged to form a long hedge of branches, providing shelter not only for insects, but small birds and mammals. The bug snug, smaller version, the one in the middle one is my attempt in my back garden. They are a quick and easy way of providing shelter and using up shrub and brush cuttings, and they don't take up much space or effort to make. Maintenance for biodiversity. This is one of the things in the criteria. Again, this is in the criteria, and it involves making sure that any actions that you undertake within your grounds and gardens, if your business has them, benefits or at least does not harm or degrade biodiversity. Now, this includes looking at mowing regimes, trying to establish different heights of sward, this providing a variety of areas for feeding and shelter. Try not to cut the grass too early in the season. If you are trying to establish more wildflowers in the lawn, remove any grass clippings to help lower the lawn's fertility. In other ground maintenance activities, there is a legal requirement not to cut trees or hedges during the nesting season. Try to undertake any ground or garden maintenance with a minimum disturbance to wildlife. With any organic waste, hedge trimmings, grass clippings, etc., try to establish a compost heap on site. If you are concerned about attracting vermin or do not have much space, there are a lot of hot box and tumbler type compost bins that are vermin proof and take up next to no space. And you can use them to deal with food waste as well. They turn waste into a usable compost a lot quicker than a traditional compost bin or heap. In the autumn or winter, care must be taken if moving or burning piles of logs or leaves or branches, as hedgehogs and small mammals may be laying up underneath. Any windblown or cut branches used for log piles. Try to retain and enhance any wet or damp areas that you have in your gardens or grounds. And if you must clean out ponds, do it in the autumn, and always leave any plants or debris lying on the pond, round by the pond overnight, to allow any creatures that have come out with them to get back in safely to the pond. Try and control the invasive non-native plants such as Japanese knotweed, Himalayan balsam, skunk cabbage, and giant hogweed. Although care must be taken with the removal and destruction of some of these plants, as they are quite dangerous to touch, especially hogweed. It is also a legal requirement to stop them spreading and causing nuisance or damage to other land or property, and their very presence may affect both your ability to get a mortgage and insure your property. As we kind of brushed on there, most people have heard of no mow May, but this is where we are asked to refrain from cutting our lawn too early in the season, and by doing this, allowing emerging pollinating insects access to nectar, a nectar source from early flowering plants within the lawn. Bird's foot trefoil, dandelions, clovers, and self-heal are fantastic for early pollinators. Consider what you're looking for in your lawn. In the left-hand photo on the slide, you can see a neatly clipped lawn, which would probably contain maybe one species of grass and maybe the odd daisy, basically a monoculture. And you can see in the other photographs where wildflower meadows have been created, not only in large areas, but also in a relatively small garden. Here there must be possibly 30 to 40 species of grasses and wildflower, and in my biased opinion, a much prettier and more Monet-esque scene with huge benefits to pollinating insects. If you decide to try and establish a wildflower meadow or area, be careful where you buy wildflower seeds. Check that the seeds have not been imported from abroad and that they are seeds from flowers that are found in the area where you are going to sow them. Most reputable seed suppliers will have seed mixes for your specific area and habitat. When establishing a wildflower meadow on existing grassland, try to plant also a large proportion of yellow rattle. This is a partially parasitic on grass and will help change the makeup of the lawn to favour wildflowers. Here we can see examples of wildlife that are often found in urban areas and that are beginning to make villages and towns and cities their home. Hedgehogs are probably doing better in urban settings and of parks and suburban gardens and allotments than their country cousins. Foxes are also faring very well in urban settings. Deer and badgers are also seen more and more often in towns and cities. The three photographs on the left of the slide represent relatively newcomers to the urban scene. I took this photograph on the far left with a trail camera of an otter below a city centre hotel under which a mill stream runs, the hotel being a converted 15th century flour mill. Here the female and two well-grown cubs hunted almost every night. The fuzzy photograph of the pine marten was taken by the Royal Zoological Society whilst doing a survey of hedgehogs in southwest London just a couple of months ago. This is the first sign of a pine marten in London for over 100 years. And finally, the top left photograph is of a beaver, which are being introduced in many river systems all over the UK, and which are now resident and often seen on the river that flows through the city centre of Perth in Scotland. Biodiversity education and promotion. Education is fundamental to improving awareness of and on ecological and environmental issues concerning biodiversity. This can be achieved by using art, books, maps, and displays, and verbally by talking to customers about what they might see in your area and how they can help. You can see on the slide example of children's books, spotters guides, interpretation boards, and maps. Other equipment that some of our members have supplied are binoculars, trail cameras, pond dipping equipment, and bag detectors, as well as notepads and colouring books. Some larger businesses have erected hides, viewing platforms, and established signposted nature trails within their grounds. The more information that you can give your visitors and customers, the more they will become engaged in what you are trying to do in your efforts to increase and protect nature. However, if you feel you cannot undertake any practical actions to help nature at your premises, then you can also always promote and support nature-based projects that are taking place within your area. Excuse me. There are regional wildlife trusts that operate all over the country and are doing some excellent work. There are also many national conservation groups that you could support, such as RSPB, BTO, British Trust for Ornithology, Bug Life, the Woodland Trust, Trees for Life, and Plant Life. There are also many international conservation groups, such as the World Wildlife Fund, which is the largest and works in nearly 100 countries worldwide, or the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation in Nature. Both do sterling work. You can support and promote these organisations in several ways by monetary contributions, volunteering, or just making visitors and customers aware of the work that they're doing both in your area, nationally and worldwide. Monitoring recording biodiversity with upsurge in citizen science during the lockdowns of the past few years has never been easier to record biodiversity. There are a multitude of wildlife surveys and apps that you can use to record the flora and fauna in and around your business. The Great Garden Watch, organised by the RSPB, had 540,000 people take part in 2023 and has counted 185 million birds due to an estimated 11.5 million hours spent watching birds during the birdwatch since 1979. If you have a large garden or grounds, consider having an ecological survey done. This will give you a baseline to gauge if any habitat maintenance or improvements that you are undertaking are making a difference. Try to involve staff, guests, and customers, especially kids. Encourage them and supply them with material and equipment such as notepads and pencils and binoculars for them to observe and record any wildlife that they encounter in your area. Just to sum up, protecting and conserving, enhancing and promoting biodiversity may not seem that relevant in the day-to-day running of your business. However, I hope that what I have endeavoured to demonstrate today is that it is important to all of us, whether in supply lines, as an attraction for visitors, or just mindfulness and the pleasure taken from seeing wildlife in all its forms. And that, I believe, is it. And I will now open up for any questions, if anybody's got any questions. I'm kind of losing my voice a bit. No.
I was interested in bees for hotels, where I know a lot of hotels have put beehives on their roofs and areas. Is that a thing that you need a lot of expertise to look after, or do you literally install them and just let them get on with it?
Well, as I said in the thing, there are many beekeeping clubs, and they are usually desperate for places to put their hives, kind of thing. So, I mean,
right.
I say a quick internet search, I'll come across one. There will be one near you. I can put money on it, and it's just a case. Approach them, see are they interested, kind of thing. Most will be. And it's a good, as I say, it's a good PR thing for social media, having honeybees on your roof.
Yeah,
You-
yeah.
Your chef will love you. I mean, and plus it gives you saleable honey as well to put in your gift shop or whatever.
Right. I'll Google local clubs then.
Good man.
Thank you
Good.
very much. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? No, everybody quite happy. Oh, Emily. Well, and if everybody, we're just almost on time. If everybody's quite happy with that, I'll kind of end it there. We will get if you can bear going through that again, I will send a recording out to everybody. Just if you've got a quiet hour, if you're going to reconnect with biodiversity, it's there for you. But just thank you for coming and listening to me drone on about biodiversity for an hour. So hopefully you've taken something from it, and good luck.
Thank you. That was great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.